moving to a new town was supposed to be a fresh start. After leaving behind the mess of city life, I was ready for something quieter, something normal. I was lucky enough to meet Greg pretty quickly. He was friendly, maybe a little too friendly, but it was nice to have someone show me around. He knew every place in town, from the best coffee shops to the hidden spots in the woods that, according to him, only the locals knew about. Greg was tall, with dark eyes that seemed to study everything around him. He was different from the people I'd known before. Something about him was intense, always leaning a little too close, watching a little too carefully. But I brushed it off. One night, he invited me to his house, saying he wanted to show me something special. When I arrived, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air was thick with a strange, metallic smell, and his house was dimly lit, casting long shadows over everything. The walls were lined with shelves holding jars filled with dark liquids, twisted bones, and small vials of powder. I asked him what they were, but he only smiled, saying they were just collectibles. I tried to laugh it off, but something about the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. He led me deeper into the house, toward a room at the end of the hall. The walls seemed to close in, and that smell grew stronger. When he opened the door, I saw it, a room draped in red cloth, candles flickering in every corner. On the floor, there was a large, intricate circle drawn in what looked like dark paint, or was it blood? Greg's smile widened as he gestured for me to step inside, but I hesitated. Something told me I was being led into a trap. The more I spent time with Greg, the stranger things became. I couldn't shake the image of that room, the circle on the floor, and the smell that seemed to linger long after I left his house. But I told myself I was overreacting, that I'd just imagined the worst. Then, one evening, he called me over, saying he had something important to show me. I didn't want to go, but curiosity and a sense of loyalty pulled me back to his house. This time, he led me to the basement. The walls were lined with symbols I didn't recognize, dark, looping shapes and strange markings that seemed to pulse in the dim light. In the center of the room, I saw it, a stone altar covered in dried blood, surrounded by candles and various objects. There was a dagger with a blackened blade, vials filled with what looked like blood, and strange animal skulls. I felt sick, the air thick with the smell of iron and something rotten. Greg watched me closely, his eyes glinting with excitement. He began explaining that he'd been preparing for something called the binding. It was a ritual, he said, an ancient one that required blood, human blood. He told me that he needed someone who was pure to complete it. His words twisted in my stomach as I realized what he was saying. I tried to leave, but he blocked the doorway, his face twisted with an expression I'd never seen before. He told me I was perfect, that I'd been chosen for this, that it was my destiny. His voice was low, almost hypnotic, as he described how the ritual would connect our souls, binding me to the other side forever. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just some strange hobby, he was dead serious. My heart pounded as I tried to think of a way out. Greg's face was inches from mine, his eyes dark and unblinking, filled with a chilling certainty. I knew I had to get away before he could complete whatever twisted plan he'd set in motion. I tried to play along, feigning interest, asking him about the ritual. His expression softened as he explained the final steps, how my blood would spill on the altar, completing the sacrifice. He picked up the blackened dagger, holding it like a prized possession. I could see the blade's edge, stained from past rituals, as if it had tasted blood before. While he was distracted, I spotted an open window near the ceiling. It was small, but if I could reach it, I might be able to escape. I inched toward it, my pulse racing, every muscle tense. When he turned his back, I made a break for it, scrambling up and squeezing through the window just as he realized what I was doing. His voice echoed behind me, a furious scream, shouting that I couldn't escape, that I was bound to him. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. As I sped away, I glanced back and saw him standing in the driveway, watching me, his face twisted in rage. The next day, I reported him to the police, but when they checked his house, there was no trace of any ritual, no blood-stained altar, nothing. They said he'd vanished, leaving behind only an empty house. But I knew better. Even now, I still feel like he's watching me, like his twisted plan was never finished. Sometimes, I see shadows in my room, feel cold fingers brush against me at night. And in the darkest hours, I swear I can hear his voice, whispering that the ritual isn't over, that it's only just begun.